another night with Pops. We're going to talk some pop culture, comic books, and some fun stuff. I have a great guest. RC Gates is with us, a great YouTuber. I'm really enjoying his channel, and I hope we can talk about some fun stuff, and you guys will go over and check him out. So, RC, thanks for hanging out with us, man.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
Catch everybody up a little bit about what you do, your YouTube channel, kind of your passions.
Okay. Well, my YouTube channel it's actually on its third go round because I had originally started out as a gaming channel.
Okay.
That sort of uh, let's just say that didn't really go anywhere. So I started doing some more like pop culture stuff and
Mhm.
relating it over to comics,
Okay.
and I sort of fell into like the Comicsgate crowd and like Fandom Menace, and that sort of brought me into the whole like indie comics community.
Okay.
So that's what I try to do or try to focus on right now, and um, I try to start to highlight the comics that I like that I backed through Comicsgate, and just the interesting stories that I've seen and the interesting people that I've encountered in that movement.
Awesome. So, if you had to kind of go back to sort of your maybe whether it be your childhood or kind of where you first got into comic books, what are some of the inspirations or things that you enjoyed kind of back in the beginning?
Well, there's several different places where I actually started with comics.
Sure.
One was started back whenever I was still watching like Saturday morning cartoons, and
Sure.
there was Batman the animated series. I actually had some VHS tapes of the older like Spider-Man series, the animated series, and that sort of got me interested in stuff like the Batman
Yeah.
Adventures
Sure.
comics and various other like trade paperback books
Hmm.
like this one.
Sure.
And I would see those ones. I'd also get comics that would be sort of packaged in with like action figures that you would get at like Toys R Us.
Oh yeah, they're really collectible too, by the way.
hmm Yeah, I've
Yeah.
got like which ones do I have right here? I actually just pulled some out from my comic shelf over here just to show everybody on stream. And I have let's see, I have one from Silver Surfer,
Yeah.
um, one from one of the Fantastic Four characters,
Yeah. Is that the Ultimate series? Yeah.
hmm the Uncanny X Men.
Oh yeah, that's good. Raise that up a little bit higher there. I want to see that. That's good stuff. Is that Claremont era? Maybe. I don't know. A little bit.
Um,
Maybe a little bit after Claremont. I don't know.
Maybe. Give
Storm
me
has a
one. Yep, Chris Claremont is the writer.
Storm has a mohawk. It's probably got to be Claremont.
hmm
That definitely looks like a Claremont era and that type of Cyclops and yeah, that stuff. John Byrne doing a lot of that art and who has some good stuff, man. Actually, so that's
hmm
the best thing I've reread recently was Uncanny Dark Phoenix Saga. I just revisited that for the first time in many years and was like still just blown away. It's so good.
hmm
Well, that's cool. And then, so that transitions you sort of like, going through trades, different things that you can collect kind of easily. When do you kind of go into like maybe your next phase?
That would be whenever. I know all of these are pretty much at the same time,
Okay.
and like I would have that, and then there was sometimes whenever I would go into one of my local comic shops because I'm lucky enough to have two of them close to me. And whenever I was younger, I went into one because it had like a, it had one of those glowing signs, and it had like a Spider-Man um, logo on it, and I was like, that looks interesting. I want to go in there, and I was like, went in and I was actually there with my dad and my brother, and the shopkeeper was actually nice enough to give all of us some of the free comic book day
Yeah. Yeah.
comics.
Yeah. Cool.
And those are ones that it was a wide variety of comics, and it seemed like it would be a good way of getting a new person into the comic books. So I had those and I read them repeatedly. And all of that sort of helped to build up my creativity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And during all that time, I would sort of keep up with what was going on with like comic book movies at the time, because at that point it was still at the point whenever like Tobey Maguire was Spider-Man.
So it's in the early '90s or later '90s,
Later 90s,
maybe
early 2000s,
maybe
yeah.
early aughts. Okay, got it.
Yeah. I'm only 27, so
Oh, I got you.
not
Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
yeah. But yeah, all of that was sort of happening at the same time. And then right about whenever I started college was sort of whenever I sort of moved away from comics for a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
I was out of it for a good uh I was out of it for a good couple years. And then I'm a graphic designer by trade.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I had to do for my one of my final projects for college was I had to create an exhibition of my work. And I had this idea pop into my head of, okay, what do I want to do? I want to make a comic book. Now, I've mentioned this on my channel before, but that comic book never actually ended up happening because I was pretty much using inferior hardware. Like I only
Yeah.
had like one of those like tiny little Wacom tablets, and I was vastly underestimating how much time it would take to actually make this stuff.
Right.
So that never actually came to fruition, but the idea was still in my head throughout that period, and it hasn't left my head since that point. And that was probably at least 5 years ago now.
Right. Wow. That's, it's really cool that once, when we first, we go through those impressionable years as kids and then into our teenage years. And then it's like at different times in our lives, we'll revert back to these passions. And you go through peaks and valleys in life, you do different trials and turbulations, maybe with a job or relationships, finances, all those things factor into it. But yeah, at the end of the day, we kind of find ourselves back at a lot of the things that we loved and that we hold so dear. And I know that's one of the reasons that, because you've mentioned Comicsgate and talk about that, it's I think one of the things that's at the core of that even existing is just that many people feel like the current industry has diverged so far from the things that had us passionate about it to begin with. Like it's not even the same industry. Like we're looking at, you look at DC and Marvel in, let's say, I'm still going to go back to 2011. People will disagree with me saying it came much later, but whenever that's when they introduced Miles Morales and Kate Bishop, and that was when it kind of began, even though it didn't really totally derail, probably until about 14, 15, maybe 16 in the comic
Yeah.
books. You're looking at completely two different worlds, and the one we were just mentioning, we talk about John Byrne and Chris Claremont, and the Jim Shooter era Marvel, and even later, even to like the Dan DiDio era DC. You're like, things were very, very good, and there were a lot of good material being created. I mean, and of course, there's always crap, but there will always be crap. But now it's
Yeah.
like the traditions and the legacies are gone, and I think that's probably what kind of drove you towards Comicsgate. If I can kind of read between the lines of what you're saying, because it sounds like it's kind of like you wake up one day and like, wait a minute, what's happened here?
Um, in a way.
Okay.
Um, whenever I got out of college, and that was still at the point whenever I was out of collecting comics
Mm-hmm.
and like reading them, because I would just have my bookshelf full of them from the ones that I already had. And I was I was working at like a hobby shop. It wasn't one that sold comics, it was more of like very niche. But I was working there and I would always have time to put in my headphones and listen to YouTube videos while I was stocking the shelves and just waiting for times whenever the customer would actually come in. And I stumbled onto your boy Zach, and for those who don't know, that'd be like Richard C. Meyer. He goes by both names. And his Diversity in Comics YouTube channel, back whenever it was still called that. And he sort of led me into watching Ethan Van Sciver, and that got me hooked on the whole Comicsgate, like all of their creative projects, all of their comics, all the stuff that they would be putting out in crowdfunding.
Sure.
All of that came about because I was able to see from an outsider standpoint, because I wasn't keeping up with some stuff. I was able to see what was happening to the industry, and what I was seeing what I didn't want to be a part of. So I was able to go to watch their stuff and get involved in backing their books, seeing what all the hubbub was about this thing called Comicsgate. And I've been there ever since, and I have a whole nother shelf of all of the stuff that I backed from them. And
yeah, you have a lot of reviews. Again, folks, we'll put links there so you can go over to RC's channel and subscribe to the videos for yourself. He has lots of reviews of those books in particular, reviews that are not real common. So if you're really trying to find out what a lot of this stuff is, what these artists actually produce, it's a good way to kind of get a good snapshot at that. And again, I'll try to put a synopsis spin on Comicsgate the best I can from more of an outsider point of view. And that would be, Gamergate kind of came first, and it was basically this rash of gaming journalists who basically attacked the gaming industry as being every ism and phobic that you can kind of throw out there, whether it be gender and sexuality or whatever. It's incredibly wrought and overdrawn stereotypes and attack on people, basically trying to excise them from the industry and ruin their livelihood and that kind of thing. Simultaneous to this was sort of rising and bubbling up in the comic book industry. It just wasn't really that aggressive yet. They weren't really kicking people out of the club as much. But then around 2016, when obviously our political landscape got extremely diversive within like a 3-month period, those individuals were very quickly not only being confronted, but were being kicked out of the club. And then it become like, well, who do you know? You know that person. What do you believe? What do you believe? And that's where you get these terms like virtue signaling may have been like something talked about and you can recognize in hindsight, but at that point it become an undeniable fact of reality in these creative circles. And that's where you get Ethan Van Sciver, who's really gone as sort of like a nucleus of this group in a lot of ways, because he's been very vocal about how DC approached him. It was very political, how people were alienating him, how they were saying different things, treating him like a pariah. And then, of course, he's had this incredible success of making millions of dollars by the resurgence of his 1990s, Cyberfrog comic books. And then, of course, other artists have come on board, famous ones, Dan Fraga and John Malin in particular. These massively successful mainstream comic creators are now doing their own stuff and making a ton of money doing it. And for me, it's been interesting. I'll tell you a little bit myself. So for me, I did a lot. I am not a creative person from the sense of making my own comic book. But I do write, and I wrote a lot for different pop culture websites, even back in that era of the aughts. And I remember meeting Ethan for the first time in a very small Tampa Comic-Con. And I don't remember exactly how I got down that he was sitting next to Alex Saviak. And Alex is pretty chill. He lives here in Florida. I think Alex lived in Orlando at the time. So they were at most of the Orlando and Florida conventions. I've seen them before. I've talked to Alex before. I've done separate interviews with him. So but the first time I talked to Ethan, and somehow we ended up down how bad Marvel is, like rabbit hole. It's like 2005, 2006. And he just become unhinged about how cheap they were, how terrible they were, unprofessional they were. And then Alex just jumped right in. But yeah, they were trying to cheat me out of my Tombstone money because they did this coloring book and they wouldn't pay me for my art. And it was like, what has happened? That was my first dose of, because I got to be honest, even beyond that, I never really had an interaction that really was too negative from the comic book creators. I remember going to shows for years. I could walk right up to J. Scott Campbell's, like, I can't talk to you right now, but I'll talk to you in 20 minutes or come back. I've never had a problem. But man, I can tell you what, in the last few months where I've kind of, because again, roller coaster like yourself, kind of in comic books, out of comic books. For me, it's also in writing, out of writing. Now I've been doing this YouTube thing because a lot of the other stuff has kind of fallen away. I'm like, well, I'll just do my own channel and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only really I only resurfaced just a little bit, and then of course the pandemic. And I work in healthcare, so everything become absolutely mayhem for me for basically a year and a half. Uh, I just go on Twitter. I would ask people questions. I basically am just like the naive journalist at this point, where I'm just kind of like asking people questions, like Ron Mars, what do you mean by this? And it was like to write an article. Like I was trying to look for a quote to be fair, because people were attacking him for something that he said or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I just get blocked. And it was like not once, it was like 4 or 5 times, all these different. So now I have like a long list of like 12 artists that just block me from basically just trying to write from a journalistic standpoint. Because
Mm-hmm.
I got to be honest, I'm not pro Comicsgate only. I don't have a problem with any of it. I just want good comic books.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've been, and around Christmas time, I went on vacation, and I have the Marvel app to read all these old this stuff, and mostly stuff I either don't have anymore or I would never buy. And of course, a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
new stuff you're bringing up, your boy Zach, and I've seen a lot of the videos you're probably referring to. The inclusion of characters like, I was like, oh, surely it's not that bad. I can kid you not, folks. And you heard me say it on my stream interview I did here recently, where I said, yeah, America Chavez is that bad. I'm really having a hard time just getting through pages.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so insane. And I'm sure you've by now seen some of that to realize, oh yeah, they're not exaggerating. It really is that bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whenever you have a character and you literally put in their speech bubble, "Holy menstruation," it's
Yes.
like,
I have the screenshot on my phone right now. I think I put it on my Facebook and Twitter, and just like what, and I showed some friends at work, because someone I work with, I try to give her comic books I don't want anymore, because if she has young boys, they're like 11 and 9. I'm like, oh yeah, we gotta get these kids hooked, right? And she was asking about what I'm reading. I'm like, you probably don't want to know. And I showed her the
yeah.
screenshot. She's like, what is this? I said, you got to be careful what you let them read. That's supposed to be funny, I guess, or I don't know. I didn't know how to take it either. It's so funny that you use that exact quote one, because I literally had that on my. That's exactly about where I stopped. I stopped at America Chavez 5 or 6, and I haven't been able to get further because it's just been so utterly bad. So yeah, it's been a crazy journey, I think, for all of us, right? And I think now you
Mm-hmm.
find yourself, you're trying to do YouTubing now, your Comicsgate stuff's out there, and you're like, listen, I'm going to focus on this other stuff by people that are trying to make something that sounds like it's more entertaining to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it has really made itself into a very good community.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that some people don't really like the word community, but I like to use it. Um, there's a lot of different channels out there who they interact with each other. They have streams like what you and I are doing, where they just talk to each other, they interview each other, and they let people know about their creative ideas and just like their creative aspirations. I actually I don't have any current projects, but
Because I wanted to get
I
to you,
have.
I wanted to get to your drawing passion. Because you talk about being a graphic designer, but I've seen some of your stuff where you're just drawing, and your fan
Mhm,
art and stuff. That stuff is it's fantastic. So I just, it's yeah, I think it's really important that we do try to encourage one another into whatever those endeavors may be.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can actually pull up some of that fan art if you want to
I would.
if you
I'd
want to
love to
show
show
that.
you. Yeah, just share that up there, and I'll.
Alrighty.
We'll let you share directly, or do you have to put a comment in or something? I think you could just share directly, right? I don't think I have any
Yeah, I need
settings.
I just need to actually pull it up
Okay.
and figure out which of these screen shares it is. Oh, okay.
While he's doing that, I will go over again. RC Gates. We'll put links there. He has links to all of his socials, so everything on Twitter and TikTok and Getter and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
definitely catch you up, folks, so you can connect with him and see some of this stuff firsthand, and maybe reach out for yourself. So go ahead, buddy. You got it shared.
Yep.
There it
All right.
is.
This is the one I have pulled up is actually a Visions fan art, and this is from whenever John Malin was doing his Graveyard Shift 3 campaign. And he had actually put out a call for fan art of his character of Lilith. Pretty much just the only guideline was that she had to be in a bikini.
Hmm.
And I like drawing pinup art, so this was my bread and butter.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And it's really cool too that they want to encourage folks doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you get the sense sometimes from the mainstream creators that they don't want you to do this. It's very, very strange now. When I was, again, going to shows regularly and all of that, I remember I was in line, and again, maybe it's me, but comic book people are can be a little strange. And I was in line to meet Marv Wolfman to sign my Crisis on Infinite Earth thing, and the guy next to me had like 30 books for this guy to sign. And there's no like certification. These books are battered out. And Marv doesn't even blink an eye. He's just scribbling away on like 30 comics. And it just seems absurd. In today's world, I got a feeling that creator, maybe not Marv, I don't want to speak for him, because he never showed me even one inkling of angst. But just pick a new creator, they'd be like, no, I'm not signing 30 of those, or it'll be $10 or something. It'll just be crazy stuff and very protective of their art and their creations. Whereas you're saying, oh no, Malin said go ahead and do this and be creative. Just make sure you do this one thing as my credit. That's really, really cool. I didn't actually know that Malin had encouraged you in that way. So that's really kind of cool to know.
Yeah. Just as complete transparency, it wasn't just me. It was
right.
It was like a contest where he had a book on one of his campaigns, which was called Visions, and in that book, he had professional artists and amateur artists like myself who made that character of Lilith in a bikini, and he actually put that on the campaign.
Right. Awesome.
And for the art that was good enough, or that he thought was good enough, he would actually pay people to have it as a full page, as a full page included in the book. Mine was only in the fan art section, but still being able to be in the book was freaking awesome.
Yeah, it is. That's really, really cool. That's a really cool thing. I don't think I even knew that as well. So yeah, it's really cool to see that come to light. Is there a so you mentioned you have some on your shelf. I know you've done a lot of reviews. So let's just go right to the top. What is like your favorite of that Comicsgate type stuff that you have?
Favorites. Alrighty. So I have several favorites. First one, and I know that there's a lot of hype around it, would definitely be Cyberfrog, which, if I was going to go back 5 years, I definitely would not have pictured myself being a fan of something called Cyberfrog. But whenever I got the Blood Honey campaign, well, the Blood Honey books, because I actually missed the campaign, I had to get those on eBay. I was blown away by the story, and it's something that I want to continue reading the story and see what's going to happen to the characters. Because, like, for those of you who don't know the story of Cyberfrog now, Ethan actually has an alien race called the Vespis who have taken over Earth, and Cyberfrog is just now coming back to save the planet. And the first book, which is Blood Honey, sets that up perfectly, and I just can't wait to get the rest of the story that goes along behind it. Now, he's released supplementary stories to sort of like keep people's appetite building throughout this entire time. Like, he's released the Warts and All omnibus and the Unforgettable Tales books.
Right.
I think those were the ones that
Warts and All goes all the way back to the very first appearance, and really kind of gets into his original work. And the one thing that always strikes me about that, what I enjoy, and I know it wouldn't be for everyone, it is definitely in the vein of the very original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the style and the black and white. But the biggest thing is it's very, very meta. It is very, very meta. It's like Cyberfrog's like, okay, I'm going to take a nap while you read this little subplot. And I just, that little sequence, I just laugh every single time. Like, it just isn't old. And then as you get to know this sort of obnoxious persona that he has on YouTube, you sort of kind of laugh in your head going, he really just lives vicariously through these characters in these very interesting ways. And, you want to hope that's what all creators do, but you definitely get a feel that some of these guys are definitely doing that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I agree with you there.
Oh
That's
yeah.
definitely one. There actually, I can say this of the Comicsgate stuff that I've supported, and I've gotten books. His stuff is what I've gotten the most into. I don't really have the other guy. I've stuff I'm just still waiting on, but his are the ones that I've gotten and really enjoyed. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, cool.
But yeah, it's like one thing that Ethan does that sort of carries over to a lot of different creators in Comicsgate is the passion behind their creativity. It
Hmm.
just it leaks onto the page and you can feel it whenever you're reading it.
Yeah.
So it definitely attracts readers to them and to their work. So I can definitely say that I'm one of those people who was attracted by that. Um, Other than Cyberfrog, what I'm looking forward to is actually ones that some people may not be aware of. They're ones that are actually done by smaller creators.
Hmm.
So I'm actually going to pull these out right now. There's actually, if I can, I'm trying to search through my shelf and see where they are in this list of people. All right. All right. So there's one. I'm trying to think of a way to actually put this, but it's like a floppy size comic book that is about an android assassin who has had her memories wiped. And it's called Perfect 10 by Dave Brink. I really enjoyed this comic book. He's put out 2 books, and I think he's actually a creator from the UK, I think. So there will be a little bit more shipping involved whenever it does come to these books, but he has a comic universe under the name Genuine Comics.
Hmm.
I'm gonna try and get that as close to the camera as possible.
I try to make it
And
big for you. Yeah.
yeah, he has like I honestly really enjoy his storytelling with these characters, and he's setting up an entire universe with these books.
Hmm.
He does have a website where people can get the additional books because he's crowdfunded the ones that he's crowdfunded Perfect 10, and he's also going to be crowdfunding some other ones, some other characters in his universe. And even just from the first 2 issues of this comic series, I'm already hooked on it.
That's
And I
awesome.
have done a review of Perfect 10 on my channel, so definitely go and check that out because it will be worth your while.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, that's good.
Mhm,
That's great. Great recommendations.
mhm. And
Um,
if I can, I would just give
yeah,
one
keep going.
more just to sort of round it out at 3. Um, if I can find where the third one is, goodness, I have a lot of books that I backed. All right, so the third one would be actually a comic book that's coming out through Alterna Comics. And I got this whenever it was actually being crowdfunded by the creator, and then he went over to Alterna Comics. This is TBird and Throttle by Josh Howard. He's put out 4 issues of TBird and Throttle, along with a 0 issue. And in the back of the book, he does say that he is going to be continuing that series, but this is a complete series that is done. The story is finished, but there's a continuation with other villains and stuff like that. It's sort of like a sci-fi story of a an astronaut. I guess I'd classify him as an astronaut who gets something called the engine, attached to him, and that's what you see on the cover here. This is actually the last book, but he gets that attached to him, and then he becomes a superhero. And the story mainly takes place several years in the future, where he is sort of a forgotten superhero, and he needs to live with how that has changed him and changed his family, and seeing how the people in his city react to him and how differently they treat him. So he needs to come back and save everybody from these invaders, and an old nemesis that he has, who is coming back to exact his revenge.
Very, very awesome. Very awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to go full circle, when you were talking about, stuff when you were younger and that kind of thing, what is your connection, or you think inspired you from your sort of Batman animated series days to the storytelling and the stuff that you're enjoying now? Is there sort of any common threads of, I know I always like this kind of story or this type of character? Is there anything there that you can kind of put your finger on that really always, kind of draws you in? I'm a sucker for the realism. So for me, it either has to be very extreme and universe built, or it has to be like I was like a big Batman collector, because it was like this. It was like it was like the real guy. He had to use his intellect, and it was smart. He would get hurt. That's why I didn't really ever enjoy like Superman and some of the now we see the Mary Sue syndrome in Hollywood. It's like, well, I don't enjoy any of that because I don't enjoy the invincible character. I don't enjoy that. Now the universe building is interesting. That's where the like you were saying with he wants to build this entire complicated universe. I know that's fascinating to me. I enjoy the immersion of that, almost like sci-fi / fantasy. So I'm just curious if you had something you put your finger on, something that always seems to rise to the top of your favorites.
Well, you actually put it quite perfectly whenever you said sci-fi fantasy, because that is something that really does draw me towards it. Like, even whenever it comes to like the Batman the Animated Series sort of stuff, or even just little things in comics where they add a little bit of a sci-fi touch to it, all of that sort of stuff really does capture my imagination, and it makes me think of what can I do to add a science fiction touch to what I'm creating. Like, and I know I said that I don't have many projects currently, but the ones that I have in my head and that I'm working on but not ready to put out publicly, those ones have a lot of science fiction elements and fantasy elements merged together in them.
Sure. Very cool. Do you have like a fantasy artist that you're real inspired by, or anything like that you can think of, where you're like, this is one or two that you're like, oh yeah, they really. Again, I'm a realist guy, so for me, the like the Boris Vallejo, Julie Bell type fantasy stuff for me was always just like breathtaking. Like I was always just blown away of, because it was like kind of before Alex Ross for me. Like it was like Alex Ross was a little bit later, but just that idea of the uber realism was always just mind blowing. Wow, this is just so cool. And now, of course, there's a lot of artists that kind of do that. But back in I'm a little older. I'm a little bit of an older fella, so I didn't have as much of that back then.
Yeah, that's understandable. Well, whenever it comes to artists, I would actually go the complete opposite of, like, I know you were saying that you're more of the realism guy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely more of the cartoony guy.
Sure.
The artist that probably most inspires me and has inspired me for the longest time is probably Bruce Timm.
Yeah.
I know that is probably about as cartoony as you can get.
Yeah.
But like the way that he draws characters, it's very simplified, but it also has the right amount of action to it. And the way that he draws females is just like, it blows my mind.
Yeah.
But I've tried to I've tried to influence my style towards what he has, but I find myself sort of falling short whenever it comes to that. So I think I've found my own unique style when it comes to creativity. But yeah, his is definitely the one that's inspired me the longest.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So obviously you talk a lot about, how you support the comic skaters, their different crowdfunding campaigns. A lot of them are on Indiegogo. I assume Kickstarter on some, but those kinds of things. Uh, I can share your frustration with the modern comics. I don't want to be totally unfair because I'm definitely way behind the loop on a lot of the modern stuff because I always try to have hope that I'll stumble across a few things here and there. But is there anything, maybe an independent press comic or anything like that's relatively recent that may not be part of all of this that you were still like, oh, that's not bad. I've seen this. That's not bad, or anything like that. Is there anything that's actually positive? Because I don't want to sit here and just rail on people. I mean, we can do that, but I mean that's just almost like a softball. Because just like I said, America Chavez just teed itself up for me when I was just like,
Yeah.
oh my god, I couldn't believe what's happening. I actually wrote an article. This is the first time I reviewed a comic book and actually wrote an article. I reviewed Trial of Magneto, which is neither a trial nor about Magneto, which is just so incredibly shockingly bad. I was like, it really is the absolute ultimate definition of bait and switch. I just couldn't believe we didn't even get in the very end of issue 1. It's like they spoil the entire premise, and then by the time you're in issue 2, I don't know if you know the story. The story is this horrible X-Men arc, and it's called the Hellfire Gala, and it ends with what appears to be the death of Scarlet Witch. And they're going to blame Magneto. But the very last scene of episode 1, I don't know if it's the last page or panel. I'm not going to pull it back up, but yeah, she's alive. Then issue 2, everybody's attacking Magneto. They blame Magneto, and then by the time you get to 2, it becomes very clear it's going to be about Scarlet Witch. And then I think it was issues 3, 4, maybe even 5. Yeah, Magneto was irrelevant. And then they have this rushed, weird twist at the end. There's never a trial. The entire premise of the title was there's never a trial. And it was just so strange that an editor, it's almost like clickbait. That's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's like clickbait. I feel like it was comic book clickbait. And that's exactly what it was. I got suckered into it. And again, I read it because I'm like, well, let me read something modern. Let me find something that's very it's small because I didn't want to I'm gonna just. So I've been trying to read about some of the new characters and what some of the hubbub is about, pro and con. I want to be fair. I didn't mind, the Into the Spider-Verse Miles Morales cartoon animated film. I thought it was fine. It was, maybe a little, it was just. I think it gets a little bonus points for being more different with its animation than anything else, right? Mm-hmm. So, all right, well, I'll read the Miles Morales ones and. I knew where he showed up, so I was like, well, I'll never buy those. So when I got the app, I'm like, oh, this is my chance to actually read them. Ultimate follow-up basically takes place after the Ultimate Universe's Spider-Man, Peter Parker dies. So they have this new Spider-Man just spontaneously shows up. No explanation, don't really know what's going on. Half the characters are offended and mad. Half don't really, they don't even address it. They're in scene, Then you get to Miles Morales gets his own series and they explain it all. And it is so... I know Eric July has a channel and he loves to use the word about being tokenized. It's more than just being tokenized. It's not about him just being black. It's like he's bitten by a radioactive spider that comes from Oscorp because Oscorp was trying to create the radioactive spider that Peter got bit by. It's so asinine that they would try to replicate to the letter the story again. It lacked any creativity at all. Are you familiar with any of these stories at all?
I have not really delved in any. I haven't really delved into Miles Morales at all.
Yeah, I'm just saving you time then.
Yeah, whenever it comes to the quote unquote all new, all different Marvel.
Yeah,
it was whenever I first saw that advertisement in one of the comics, I was like, oh, this is gonna be bad. And I was just like, okay, this is my time to jump off.
Yeah. Again, I didn't have a problem really with the Ultimate Universe in some ways because it was just like an Elseworld universe, and I did enjoy some of it. It just seems like with the Miles thing, I'm now about, like I said, I think I'm about a dozen issues in or so. The first problem is he's supposed to be like 13. So no one brings up the fact that he's only 13. Like everyone, they have issue after issue. Just at 13, he has no capacity in life skills to be making decisions, let alone be this super powered child. I mean, I'm not about imprisoning people, but talk about a character that needs to be moved to the X-Men mansion for some serious training and control. He is the prime candidate, but no, we just ignore all that until Captain America finds out. Who is then like, what do you mean we have some 13-year-old kid running around? I'm gonna go talk to this kid. I'm like, and I haven't read past that. But it took like a year. So again, folks, if you don't really read comic books, it's like an issue a month. So when I talk about I'm on issue like 12, I'm read like the first year and a half of Miles existing, and we're just now getting to the fact that they're finally addressing the fact that he's only 13. There's no life stress at 13. What, go to class? You might like a girl. His uncle was a villain. There's really no story arcs because he's 13. So yeah, I wish I could do anything more than save RC some time with giving something else he doesn't have to read. But that's basically what my contribution to this interview or conversation has been at this point. So because I really haven't read a whole lot. I mean, I obviously love Cyberpunk. I've read all that, and I know a lot of the artists that you mentioned and others. Their traditional work, where they came from, not so much the new stuff. I'm kind of like in line to get them at some point, including Richard C. Myers books. I have, they'll be here someday. I'll get them at some point. So, but again, I came late to the party. It's okay. I'm not mad about it like some people are. So, all right, well, cool. So you have this, you have your passion for comics, passion for art, graphic design, all that. You also have, and you kind of promote, and there's definitely some videos too, this incredible, almost possibly insane love of Halloween, even cosplaying. So, and I'm just joking because I've been there, man. I understand. So, talk a little bit about some of that. That's kind of a thing we should try to address.
Alrighty. Well, whenever it came to the whole TikTok thing, I had originally started it out as, and this is another instance of me taking something that started as something completely different, because I started on TikTok as doing like workouts and general fitness stuff. And I wanted to do that originally. And then I took that sort of experience of just getting used to that platform and figuring out what works, what doesn't. And I repurposed that into bring it over to like some comic reviews, art speed paints, and the cosplays that you were mentioning. The cosplays have actually sort of evolved into characters that I'm going to include in some later stories that I want to have for my projects. Again, not nearly far enough along for me to actually put anything out about them. I just know that these are characters that I'm going to use in them. So I've done that, and actually, since I was doing that, I actually switched around my intro for most of my live streams and for my videos for it to include that I'm a vocal proponent of making Halloween a year-long holiday. So it's an easy thing for me to remember, and it's also a good way to have a snappy intro.
That's funny. I'm not sure how well it's going to go during Christmas. We have, a satanic, demonic, zombie-filled yard with Santa Claus and some reindeer on the other side, and then Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day get a little awkward. I don't know. Maybe at your neighborhood, man. Maybe it's front. I'm gonna have to get pictures of the front of your house and go, how insane is this? Or you like the neighbor just leaves it all up year round? That'd just be kind of funny, actually. As long as you don't live in like a homeowner association area, I think you might be all right. I mean, they can't really do anything.
I would never do a homeowners association. I want to know my own stuff.
Yes. Very, very good. Very good. So, so kind of where are you now? What is kind of your goals? We turned 2022. The world's still trying to climb itself out of the chaos as we deal with, this ridiculous political landscape and division that we have everywhere. what is like your goals, and let's say maybe the first half of 2022 and then maybe the year as a whole? Do you set specific goals, or you just kind of have a general outline in your head, or how do you approach what you want to accomplish, and what do you want to accomplish?
Well, I know that one of my goals for pretty much the entirety of 2022 is to work on growing my channel,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that, well, I've been bringing up the whole having projects but not having them far enough along to actually bring up anything about them. I do want to eventually put out comic books on Indiegogo for an indie comics crowd. And one of the first things that I've heard whenever I've been listening to all of these Comicsgate live streams is the first thing you need to do is build your audience. Because if you're trying to release something on Indiegogo or Kickstarter or pretty much any place, if you're just sitting there and you have maybe like 10 subscribers on your YouTube channel and you click that publish button and you put it out there, you're not going to get any backers. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put myself out there. I'm trying to improve my art and try to grow my base while also getting more people to see what I'm capable of and what I'm able to offer artistically. So I'd actually put out a video at the beginning of 2022 where I sort of put out the lofty goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, because I know that that's the first goal that you want to get to whenever you do have a YouTube channel. And I know it's a lofty goal, but I'm just putting it out there because this is one of the things I want to do. Outside of YouTube, I would want to get like at least the scripts written out for the projects that I am currently working on, and also get more acclimated to creating these comic book pages, like getting the layouts done, getting the coloring professionally, and getting more accustomed to the process of making an actual comic book.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, it's first the YouTube thing. It's just it is a difficult thing figuring out how do you approach your goals on reverse engineering a subscriber count, and it's just a law of numbers. I think the Indiegogo messaging that you were getting there with like you won't get subscribers, you won't get backers. It's like, well, it's just a law of numbers, right? So it's like if you're going to promote it through YouTube, you don't have anybody watching or you don't have enough subscribers. It's like 1 out of 10 equals 1 if you have 10. But you have 100,000, it's like thousands, and then you've got a living, you can quit your job. So it's just it's just a lot of law of numbers, and of course it just takes a lot of time, which involves a lot of content and a lot of fail. Like it is a very demoralizing process to go through doing something you're excited about it, you put it out there, and then no one ever sees it. And then for no reason at all, you make some other video and it will get traffic and you don't know why, because it just is. And you have that's my problem. I have all these videos and my videos are like, I have the videos that have like, 10 or less. Then I have this middle ground that kind of inches along, 30, 40, maybe 100. And then I have these random videos for no control of mine that have, 1,000, couple thousand, whatever, and I'll get like subscribers again. It won't even, I'll have maybe 1,000 views and I'll get like 3 subscribers. And then the next day I won't have any views, like 17, but I'll have like 5 subscribers. You're like, okay, I have no idea what's happening. So there is an element of your sanity that you just kind of have to go, look, I'm just in it to be in it and write it out. And that's because I have 3 channels. So I have 3 legs to my life of the YouTube part of things. This one, the pop culture stuff. I have a news show on Wednesday nights. And then I have really kind of my passion is like it's a more formalized version of the more, I don't want to say serious version. That kind of demeans all of this because this is important to me too. But it's I call it What's Your Story. It's a lot more. I mean, I have authors and it's a lot of stuff has to do with faith, life lessons, and just a much more serious channel. So, yeah, the pattern that I'm telling you about is across all 3 channels. We'll have, I'm whatever the Rubik's Cube is, I'm figuring this out. I haven't got it yet. I can solve regular Rubik's Cube, but I can't solve the YouTube algorithm. So, very cool. Very cool.
It's part of the struggle for every YouTuber, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess it's good. It is interesting. I mean, I don't know about you. I find myself where I'm just like, I am so increasingly less interested in regular television and movies as well. Like, I'll even know things are good. Like, I even have things marked, like I should watch this, and most of them are TV. And I'll be like, I'm just not interested in doing that right now. Whereas, like, I can watch YouTube, and maybe it's because I don't have to pay as close attention to some of the streams. It can just kind of be on, and I can be doing other stuff and listening. Whereas with like a TV show or movie, I almost have to be paying more attention, even though I can listen and not. I don't know. Do you have the same thing where you kind of feel like that you're into the more of that type of streaming, and this is kind of like a new? It's almost like it's replacing media on a percentage basis for me.
Oh, definitely. I haven't watched any like actual news in like Fox, ABC, CNN, or any of those like mainstream television. I haven't watched any of those in probably the last couple of years. I find myself watching more live streams, more just like short YouTube content, pretty much stuff like that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
Of
most of
course,
the
I'm
times.
very anti the main media anyway, but that goes back to my journalistic roots where I can't stand them, and I hate them all. Like, I remember this story. I'll share this with you, which is it's newsy, but I wrote a story about, and it's about my daughter's school class, and they were putting terrorists. They're basically associating Christians with terrorists, and they were likening it to Muslim extremists. And this is in her curriculum, so I wrote an article about it. Fox picks this up, and they mention me in like the final paragraph of the article, but I don't get a link. So it took me 5 days to get them to answer me. They did, and again, this is both in print. Like, oh, I'm sorry, in print. It's both on the internet, and they did a video on Fox. And then it took me 5 days to get them to actually put the link in, but they refused to involve me. But I'm like, I am the source. You're not the source. You stole it from me. How can you go on TV and talk about this as though you found it? You did not find it. I found it. That was my first run-in. Then that's kind of put me in bad taste with Fox. I lost my media credentials to review their movies. I actually got into a big copyright battle with them on Google because they sent me photos from a movie called Prometheus. I don't know if you remember that. It was like the Alien prequels that Ridley Scott did.
Yeah.
And they were trying to say that I wasn't allowed to publish these photos. They sent them to me. So I got this big copyright battle. This stuff takes the wind out of your sail as a creative, by the way. And again, I'm not sure being that type of writer should be considered creative, but it was to me. And it was like, you feel like you're just having your knees kicked out from underneath you. And yes, turning to the streaming world and the YouTube world, I feel like I'm at least I can pick and choose being among other creative spirits. Like I don't have to, I don't have to like everything about, I don't watch every person's every single video. Like I could say I have seen Joe Rogan, but I don't passionately watch every single one. I watch Nerdrotic, but I don't watch every single one. I watch Ethan. I watch him. Okay, but I don't watch every single one. I can just kind of pick and choose, be around the creative vibes, see things I'm interested in, catch up on what they're saying, and it's good for me. And hopefully I'm making a contribution to the world like yourself. We're like, well, we're trying to put something out in the world and we're enjoying ourselves, and it's a hobby. If it becomes something more, then so be it. So very cool. Very cool. All right, my friend. Well, we'll wrap about there. It's been good to get to know you a little bit. That's for sure. We should do this again. Yeah, I should go on your channel or whatever. I don't know, whatever you're up for. We could do this again. And yeah, it's a good time. Talk more comic books. Talk more of whatever. Maybe some of your stuff will move along over the course of the year, I'm sure. We can get updates on that. And, whatever topic seems to strike you, just let me know. We'll go from there.
Alrighty. Yeah, if anything pops up in like the pop culture realm, then and it seems interesting, then I will definitely reach out.